Welcome everyone to Wildlife, Wonder, and Weeds, connecting primary students to nearby nature. I'm Anne-Marie, Communications Coordinator for the Pathway Project. And first, I'd like to acknowledge with great respect that we are here this evening on the treaty and traditional territories of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We are grateful to the First People for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. We endeavor to honor those teachings through the Pathway to Stewardship and Kinship Project, as we strive to be good mentors to the children in our care. The Pathway Project is a partnership of many organizations centered in Peterborough, Ontario, directed by Camp Kawartha and sponsored by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. Tonight's workshop is the first of a series of 4 workshops offered over the next 4 weeks. If you haven't signed up for the workshops that are coming, just visit our website, click on Get Started, and under that tab, you'll see workshops, and that will connect you to the upcoming workshops that we have. The next one is with Nancy, and then we have 2 from Camp Kawartha Executive Director Jacob, all really awesome programs coming up, so we hope that we'll see you there as well. Let me introduce Nancy for those of you who might not know her. Nancy, to many students and teachers, is known as Nature Nancy, and she is an outdoor activity consultant for the Pathway Project, and for the past 6 years, she has been running Think Outside, which brings outdoor education programming to schools using local green space to connect people to the earth and each other. She has 25 years of outdoor education experience and is a wealth of knowledge and enthusiasm for the great outdoors. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and thanks everybody for coming tonight.
So let's move right into the video portion of this evening. Now, we have pre-recorded our presentation with Nancy so she could take you outdoors and teach you these lessons in action. Enjoy the experience that Nancy has created for you. It's a 26-minute video. She's going to take you outdoors to explore a lot of amazing learning and education tools and techniques. Enjoy the process, and we will see you back here in 26.
Hello everybody, Nature Nancy here, and welcome to Wildlife, Wonder, and Weeds. Today we are going to do a bunch of activities to connect primary students to nature. And we are going to specifically look at the landmarks from the Pathway Project that coincide with those primary ages. So these are the following landmarks that we're going to cover.
Landmark number 9 is choose an outdoor place in nature that is special to you. Visit this at least twice every month and try to visit it throughout the year.
Landmark number 10 is to plant, tend, and harvest something you can eat with help from an adult. Landmark 11 is finding 3 ways to recognize and enjoy the change of each season. Number 12 is who else lives in your neighborhood, recognizing that our community consists of other living things as well as people. Next is travel by yourself or with a friend at least twice a week on a familiar route. Number 14 is try at least 5 different kinds of outdoor recreation that don't require any gas or electricity. Number 15 is try each of these activities, like hanging a bird feeder, or growing a small garden of your own, or perhaps going fishing or exploring a wetland and seeing what's in there, or exploring other types of habitats and exploring and looking for bugs.
All right, let's get started. So the first section of activities that you can do with your primary school children and your students is called the walking curriculum. Now, after teaching out of doors for over 25 years, I've recently discovered this book called The Walking Curriculum by Gillian Judson. She's a Canadian and she's involved in Imagine Ed. Very much worth your while. The whole idea is that it's place-based education where kids are connected to their place through imagination, through a sense of wonder, through detail-oriented and cross-curricular experiences. And in this book, which when I got it, I was like, oh, it's not that big. it has so much rich information. There are so many different walks you can do with your students. So all you need is your feet and a place to go. It could be the yard, or it could be a green space. So what I have done is I have chosen about 10 different walks that are specific, I feel, to the pathway landmarks in the primary ages, and as well as the curriculum. And to give you an idea of some of the places you can start with. But this program is accumulative. The more that you do, the more ideas you'll come up with, and also your students will come up with, and the more cross-curricular ideas you'll come up with as well, combining math and writing and language and all sorts of things. So let's get going.
So the first walk for primary students is the surfaces walk, where you're looking for faces along the way, and also you're discovering different surfaces that the children see along the way. How do they feel? What do they look like? What do you see? So that's the surfaces walk. The next one is the motion walk. The motion walk is all about movement. So what do we see moving around us? We have to slow down to see the ant, or is it the wind that's creating movement? Also, what is on the move? Like this swinging troll, or the water here. What is on the move and what is moving it? The next primary walk is the weather walk, or the weathered walk. So the children are seeking out all evidence of weather on the walk. So it may be the actual weather of the day, or it may also be sun exposure and cracking, or moss, or wetness. The next walk is the shapes walk, and this can take you in all sorts of different directions. You're looking for geometric shapes. What can you find outside? And what maybe is making these shapes? This can be extended back in the classroom, where you can come up with a graph or a tally of all the different shapes. The next kind of walk is a growth walk. So you're looking for what is growing on your walk. Really easy to do in springtime. And how do you know it's growing, like this rhubarb plant? And how does that growth appear to you, like the top of this tall tree? The next walk is a very popular walk, and it can be done in lots of ways, and it's called the color walk. So can you find every color of the rainbow on your walk? And this is a great one for the younger students in the primary grades especially, but everyone loves a color walk. Another really fun walk for all ages, but especially the primary ages, is the neighbor walk. So looking at for all of your neighbors. So there's Charlie, one neighbor. And you're looking for all the living neighbors, and not just humans, taking note of the creepy crawlies and the critters, and looking for birds, or you're also looking for nests and different hives, maybe gulls, tracks. So here's a deer neighbor leaving its scat. And you can see the evidence of all the different neighbors that share the neighborhood. A fantastic math-related and nature-related walk is the pattern walk. So what visual patterns do you see? So looking at bark or rocks, or patches of grass or cones, or looking at the sky or wet ground, or here we've got some moss. And then possibly getting the students to close their eyes, picture it, and then recreating the pattern when they get back to class. So it can become an art activity as well. And the final walk that I've chosen for today is called a lettering walk, which allows those students who are just learning their letters, or maybe are mastering their letters, to look for them in nature. So as they walk, they're identifying all the things outside, just like this branch that is turned into a letter C, or this K from a branch, that either natural or human made, that represent letters.
This is an O, obviously. And here we have an F made out of a stick. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of a few of the 45 different walks that are in this book. Once again, the Walking Curriculum by Gillian Judson, which is available at the Outdoor Learning Store online. And really, really great place to start and to grow from. So let's see what some other activities we can do once we get familiar with our place. So with regards to landmark number 12, which is who lives in our neighborhood or neighborhood, one of the most successful programs I find for lots of ages of children, but especially the primary age, is going exploring for bugs. And you can use your yard, but even better, a local green space. And all you really need is a container for each of the kids, and especially if it's kind of clear because it's easier to see. And what you can do is you can get them to ask questions, ask them what makes each of the bugs different, what are the different parts of the bug, what do you see, where do they live, all those sorts of questions that link to who's living in our neighborhood, but also to the curriculum. So let's see what's under this rock. So it's really important to do a little bit of talking about how to be careful with the bugs and how to make sure that they understand to be a gentle giant. Also, I have experienced kids say, oh, I can't find a bug. Well, they really need to get down, take time, and look. And one of the easiest things to do is look underneath rocks and logs. So right here, I carefully roll it, and I can see a bunch of potato bugs, sow bugs, pill bugs, whatever you'd like to call. And so gently, the student can have a closer look and put it in a container. Oh, a little bug. And right here, I have a special bug viewer, which if you have a bit of a budget, it's really worth having a couple of these because you can really see all the different body parts of the bug and what makes it special. And remembering to talk about how to put the creatures back carefully and where they were found. What do beavers like to eat for breakfast? Oatmeal. All right, this isn't much of a meadow, but if you have an area with long grass and you have some nets, then you can sweep your net through the long grass in the area you are. And that's another way of exploring and looking for different creatures that are living in our neighborhood. So here I am outside with my class, and I'm about to play a game with them called Body Part Tag. So essentially it's a tag game. And with regards to COVID protocols, instead of playing with tagging with hands, I've used noodles instead, the International Year of the Noodle. So how the game works is you have several students who will be an insect. So in this case, I'm a snow flea or a springtail, or I could be a bee, I could be an ant, and those students wait on the side. All the other students are a different body part. So they'll either be the head, the thorax, or the abdomen. And you don't have to have signs made, they can just be saying their name the whole time through. And how the game works is when you say go, you can see the pylons, this is our playing space, make it much bigger, but my class is mobile. So what's gonna happen is the bugs, the insects, are going to try and tag one of their body parts, so they get a head. Once they've tagged the head, then they grab the noodle of the head, and then the head and them go together. So they're running together, and then both of them together are trying to tag the thorax. So at this point, the thorax joins the head joins the insect, and we go looking for our abdomen. Once we tag our abdomen, Then the abdomen joins the chain. They hold on with the noodle. And we have finished the game, and we wait outside of the playing area. So that is body part tag. So this type of tag can be used with lots of different information or curriculum that you're trying to cover. So for example, you could play a game with the parts of soil. So you could, if you're soil, and you're trying to collect organic matter, air, water, and mineral solids. So that's sand, silt, or clay. Or you can use it with math, whereas if you're the number 8, you have to collect all bunch of numbers that will equal the number 8. Or you could use it as parts of a sentence. This game is excellent when you're trying to break down a concept. The next activity is extremely adaptable. It can be used for landmark number 9, which is visiting a favorite place, or 11, which is understanding seasons, or 12, which is knowing who's living in your neighborhood. And it also has a lot of buy-in from students and children, especially in primary ages. And it is the Scavenger Hunt. And in this case, the students are exploring a space and they're making up their own scavenger hunt. It could be signs of the season, or in this case, I'm looking at more of a grade 3 curriculum and looking at plants. So in this case, what we're gonna do is look at shapes of leaves and make up our own scavenger hunt. So as you can see, the scavenger hunt has 8 boxes, but depending on your student, you may want to have more or less boxes. And the whole idea is that the students make a scavenger hunt for someone else in the class. So they trade, or someone else gets a chance to see and look for some of the things they have found. You can see that I'm here with my class, and we are doing an activity called adopting a tree. So my class has chosen one tree to look at as a whole group, or they could choose a different tree per each child, depending on what kind of trees you have available to you. The whole idea is that you get to visit that tree over and over and over again. So you go to the same spot and you get to know that spot. You also get to know your tree in different seasons. So excellent for both of those landmarks. Then you can do different activities every time. You can draw it, you can look for its changes, look at its bark. Are there any seeds or flowers on your tree? Are there animals or insects using your tree as their habitat? What does the root system look like? And this can be converted into lots of different things in class as well, such as writing and drawing throughout the whole year. And you'll find that the students become very attached to that particular tree. What kind of fruit do beavers like? Pineapple. When you take your students outside, it's important to remember that you don't have to be the expert, and that learning alongside of the students is really exciting and great for both you and the students. On the other side, it's also important for us to learn some names of the things that are in our neighborhood so that we grow a relationship with them. It's like having a friend and learning their name. So learning a few trees, learning a few insects, it's a great process that you can do with your students. The challenges with online learning are so very many. And with outdoor education, I was thinking about how can this be helped? So I was looking through some resources, and one is from Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board's Outdoor Education Centers and Programs. And they have an excellent resource. One of them that really caught my eye was one about dandelions. So teaching about plants using dandelions, which I thought was a fantastic idea, as they're easily accessible, so each child, wherever they are, can get a dandelion. Well, it didn't take me long to find this beautiful specimen. And one of the places you can start with your discussion with the students is about a little bit about the history. Dandelions are not native to Canada, and they were brought over from Europe. And they were called dents de lion, or teeth of the lion. As you can see, the leaves look like the teeth of a lion. And the fur traders would plant these along the way so that when they came back to that spot as they were traveling along, they could get a little bit of food, because it was used for food for many, many years and still is. I didn't want to pull this one out. It's such a beauty. But if you'd like to look at roots, this dandelion, or every dandelion, has a taproot. And it's really deep and really strong and allows for early growth in the spring as it dies off in the fall and then comes back as one of the first flowers of spring. Also, you can talk about how important dandelions are for the pollinators. It's one of the first food for the bees. Well, when we see the dandelion flower, we think of its beautiful color, but maybe we don't think about it very much. Did you know that each blossom is actually many flowers? Dandelions have compound flowers with a large number of small modified flowers as part of each blossom. So they're really interesting to take apart. So there were a few ideas about how you could use dandelions to look at different parts of the plant and a little bit of history. The link to the KPR outdoor education resources is below, and I'd like to thank them and give them lots of credit for a great idea. Hope you can use them. As you can see, I've asked my class to spread out and find their own sit spot, which is a comfortable spot. It could be a spot they go to all the time, in a space that they return to. And they could be doing lots of different things in that particular sit spot. But today, I've asked them to make a sense poem. So a poem using their senses. But I forgot to give them paper. Well, they'll have to remember their poem. These are the questions that I'm going to ask them. What do I feel? What do I smell? What do I see? What do I hear? What do I taste? And this can be imagined, or you can talk about that sense of smell, attachment to the sense of taste. Each answer with some words that fit their experience. So this is my poem by Nature Nancy. Cool wind, tickling grass, warm sun. Oats roasting, fresh cut grass, sweet lilac waft, bright yellow flowers, fluffy clouds, windy trees, busy ant. Honk, vroom, screech, caw, buzz, whoosh, chirp, chirp. This is my favorite activity, and it is called bug parks. So with grade 1s, 2s, or 3s, or younger students, you give them each a hoop or something similar. And the instructions are very simple. You're going to ask the students to create an amusement park or a playground for bugs. And they need to think of these things. They need to think about what bugs like to do, how bugs move. So do they climb, do they jump, do they crawl, do they fly, all those things. And what they might like to have in their park. So they collect a bunch of natural items from the ground, and then they make their park. So you can see in my particular park, I have a slide, I have a shelter, I have a place to sit, to have a snack. That's always important for bugs. And I've got a trampoline and a couple of pieces of art. I do have a slide in and out of the park. I have a little mini forest and some climbers. So that is what I chose to create for my bugs. Also, a really neat thing to do is to go on a gallery tour of the bug park so that the students have a chance to explain what they've created and share with the other students some of the neat things they came up with. So that is a bug park. What did one beaver say to the other on their wedding day? I choose you. Another great activity that can be for grade 1s, all the way up to grade 6s in actual fact, is learning about nests and nests in general. Because you can look at it as part of a habitat. You could also look at it from a structure point of view, or you can also look at it from a point of view of what are some of the things that animals need to survive. So one of the things that students love to do is they love to make nests. So I'm going to show you a few of the nests that I've collected over the years. Now, as a teacher, you don't necessarily need a bunch of nests, but often part of your walk could be looking for different nests or places where an animal might live. But over the time, you may actually find that the students collect nests for you. So you can see in front of you, there's an assortment of different birds' nests, and figuring out what they are is kind of the exciting part. You can see that there's an old wasp's nest, and also in the white bin is a squirrel's nest, otherwise known as a dray. And any of these nests can be inspiration for the students to try and create one on their own. So how I would typically introduce this activity is we might go for a little walk and look for nests. I may actually have a nest, often I do. In this case, I like using a robin's nest. They're pretty simple and easy to use and very recognizable. And I'll ask the students a bunch of questions. What are the materials? How does it shaped? What sort of material is used to bind it? What keeps it strong? And then after the students have explored how they think they can make a nest, then they have a chance to go and look for materials and then build a nest themselves. And it's important to talk to them about not getting living things and only things from the ground, and that there will be frustration. It's not going to be easy. And one of the things that is really interesting to watch is that progression of, I can't do this, to eventually getting themselves to a point where they're actually making some sort of a nest. So that's nest making. So now that the students have made their nest, mine looks pretty amazing. There are a couple extensions that you can do, depending on what you want to, for them to explore. Number one is you could possibly have little eggs of your own, and the challenge could be, can your nest hold those eggs? Another one could be the camouflage and the idea that you have a nest to keep your eggs away from predators. So can that nest tuck into a spot on the tree and stay safely away from predators? And is it well hidden? So maybe you play a game of camouflage where they try and see as many nests as they can. The third thing that you could do is you have the students leave their nests where they are, and then you come back later in the week or the next week and you do a bit of a hypothesis. Is my nest going to be there? Is it still going to be in the same spot? What do you think is going to happen to your nest? And then a fourth activity that you could do is a lot of students have this feeling that something is going to be using their nest. They have great visions of this, which is really exciting. And that could be a writing activity of, okay, they've made their nest, they've put it in a special spot. Who is going to be using their nest? So those are some extensions to the nest building activity. On behalf of the Pathway Project and me, Nature Nancy, I'd like to thank you for your interest in the project and for taking your kids outside. Thank you and see you soon.
I have 2 minutes left on the video, but I'll look at it later. Thank you so much. Already, I'm like, my mind is exploding with inspiration right now. And I just want to go out to the woods right now. So that's all I'm going to say. And I'll just mute myself because other people might want to say something too.
That's great to hear. This next section, which I think will be just as enjoyable, the Q&A, because I think, you have all these ideas, like you say, and then you just want to talk about it. So I want to welcome everyone back. So many great ideas there from Nancy. So we're going to open up the chat to questions now, and you can ask your questions by adding it to the chat. We have some questions that we have developed from the Pathway Project. So we're going to start easing Nancy into those questions while you think up some ideas. Nature Nancy.
Yes,
The first question from our staff was, what should you consider when preparing for outdoor learning? So before you move into the great outdoors, what are some things?
Just like anything in a classroom, you need to do preparation. So first of all, you have to connect with admin, I would think, because they need to know that this is what you're planning to do. You have to let parents know, because clothing is a big part. Clothing's a big part of things, and making sure that if you've got happy kids outside because they're dressed right, and then once they know you're going outside all the time, then they'll just dress right more often than not, I would say. The other things is you're doing it in baby steps. So starting looking out the window first and asking questions about what do you expect to be doing outside. And then you move out into the yard. Perhaps that's your next stage. And as you go, you have to, just like any routine in a classroom, is those conversations around what is it going to look like when we go outside? It's not going to look like recess. So what is it going to look like? Because it isn't recess, it's our time to learn. And I think that is a really important shift for kids. And interestingly, I find that the children who spend more and more time outside, they start to, you can tell they start to self-regulate while they're outside. The ones where when it's really new for them, it feels a little bit more chaotic. But as you bring them in and readjust what your expectations are, and then try again, over time, I find that they're really quite good at knowing the rules that they've actually established, and also like coming up with other ones, especially around how to take care of nature. They have a really nice relationship with being outside. So I guess that's sort of a roundabout answer.
A question from Jackie. Do you have any easy, safe suggestions or resources for kinder educators to pass on to encourage families to get their children outside during lockdown?
I would say that one that is especially for kinders. Let me look. I've got some stuff here. All right, here it is. So this book, have you seen this, Jackie? Okay, so this book is called Into Nature. It's a guide to teaching in nearby nature. And it's by an organization called the Back to Nature Network. And it's all about going outside, but going outside in a yard or in a close by space. It's all adaptable for things that are easy for, first of all, for teachers if they only have a yard to use. And they actually have, this is for K to 8, I believe. And they also have another document that's for preschool. So you can, as a kinder teacher, you can kind of go back and forth between those two. And it's on, so you can download a PDF, and all you have to do is put in your email and it's free. So if you wanted to send it to parents, it's the Back to Nature Network, and you go to resources, and it's in English and French. Yes, so for those that, yeah, which might not help all the parents, but maybe some of the parents. So anyways, so that's one I would really suggest.
Okay, another one from our staff here. Are some outdoor spaces better than others?
Yes. Okay, I'll go on. Absolutely. Some require a little more creativity, I would say, because like if you only have a yard available and your yard is small and has very little other than grass and concrete, then you have to be very creative. But that's also like a good point to start with students. Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this space. What is it that we can do to make it so that it's more diverse or more enjoyable for everyone? You know, starting a garden and creating different spaces for kids to explore. So I have found doing most of my work outside in Peterborough that within pretty much every school I've gone to, within a kilometer, there is a decent green space, which allows for more diversity. But I understand that you know, you have to make a little bit of an effort to get off the grounds and to go there. But I find when you have a few trees, at least, or a little mini forest, it just opens up so many other possibilities with regards to, you know, protection from weather. So, you know, that sort of thing. But there's lots of city parks that I have to go to. I always go to before I take a class there, because you also don't know what you're going to come across with. So it's really important to go, and if you're going outside of your yard, to check those spaces before you go. So it's like, look at the route, you know, what's the traffic like, and look at the park itself, and are there any hazards there?
We do have another question from
Sure.
Jessica. Thanks, Jessica. What are first steps to creating empathy, curiosity for critters that children are hesitant to be around? So pollinators, spiders, is bug hunts a good way?
That's a great question, because this is something that I come across all the time. So as I said before, I really notice the difference between when I go to a classroom, because I fly in, you've done all the work, I fly in and I get to take kids outside with the teacher. But what I have found in going back to lots of different schools and different classes is that the kids that have gone outside repeatedly tend to have more empathy and more curiosity, and they're much more self-regulated when it comes to kindness. So I equate it to, you know, how much time you spend in talking to the students around being kind to one another. That is, being kind to things on the earth is an extension of that. And you know, at the beginning of the year, you're repeating yourself, and you're hoping that at some point in those first months, or at least by March, that something has really gelled with regards to treating each other kindly. It's the same with the out of doors. So I find it's just repetition. Thanks, Jessica.
Really nice. Okay, another one, and you sort of hinted at this, hazards. Are there common hazards, things that are on your list that you say, every single time I go out, I check for these things? What are they, and how do you sort of work around them?
Yes, and as teachers, we're always thinking about this. And I think that's one of the reasons why some teachers are a little more nervous about taking their students out into nature, because they're worried about all of those things that you can't control. So you've got your class where you know what's in that class, but as soon as you take them outside, there's all these things that are out of your control, which makes it more work in some respects, but it also makes it less work once you get routines and comfortable with it. So the hazards that honestly, statistically, I'm most worried about are cars. So that is my biggest hazard and my biggest worry. So I need to look at the route. I need to make sure that the route to the nearby green space is safe, and that even if it takes a few more extra minutes, we just go the safest route. The other things that I think about, water, obviously, like if I go to a place like Bernardo Park, there's water all over the place. And so I always stop, and we always talk about what are some of the things we need to be aware of as a class here. So it's not like I sit down and say, don't. It's like, let's look around. What are some of the things we need to be thinking about? And a lot of that can be helped with clothing. So if you're worried about bugs, you know, just before you go, you make sure that they have long pants and they've got socks and shoes. And you come up with an idea of how close you want people to be to the water. If it's glass that you haven't seen and you know they might come across, you talk about, okay, what are some of the things that we want to leave? Maybe there's dogs in that park, and what's the etiquette around a dog off leash? So those are some of the things that I tend to really address, and sometimes right at the beginning, and then I have to like make sure we sit down and do it again if it's really needed. So
Lee is wondering, what was the bug viewer? Tell us us parents need to know? What is the bug viewer that you were using? They're amazing little contraptions.
So those bug viewers, they're actually called bug viewers. So I bought mine at the toy store downtown, downtown Peterborough, that is, for those that are in Peterborough. So toy stores often have them. They're around, I would say now, about between $15 and $20. You can look it up on online, and there are some science specific online stores that have them. I would suggest using those as opposed to using some unusual third party you don't know, like an Amazon, because I've used that, and then I get 10 bug viewers and they're all broken when I get them. So I would go to a reputable science source. They are worth it, honestly, because you can use them in so many things. You can use them for plants, you can use them for like anything, really. Soils, it's amazing.
We have some very and this is as a parent, this is also something that I struggle with. Ticks can be like the scariest bug out there for a lot of people. So Kayla and Emily both saying, yeah, how do you handle ticks? Yes, you can, you know, the tricks that people use with clothing, but maybe you could tell us a bit about that and then expand upon, is there anything else you can do to curb the tick?
Yeah, you have to talk to the ticks and say, you're not welcome. That's what you do. So I have a child that goes to a camp north of Kingston, and they've had ticks longer than we've had ticks. So I looked to them, to what they do. But I've also looked at, I've gone to a couple of webinars and I've looked at public health. The big thing is that when you're going out into any sort of meadow or long grass or space that a tick would be in, so or forest, you need to be wearing closed-toed shoes, socks, and long pants. Now, I understand that summertime people don't want to do that, but I would encourage that becomes something that is expected, because that will reduce the tick exposure by a great deal. Always do a tick check when you come back. So when you go outside, and ticks are around and active at, I understand, 0 degrees. My vet said actually 4 degrees, but he recently told me 0 degrees. So obviously you're in more of a risk on days like today, but always do a tick check. So it's sort of part of your routine. So you come back and everybody looks at their hot spots. So under behind their knees and all over their legs and, you know, under their arms and behind their ears. And so you're doing a complete check, and you're getting the students and the kids to take an active role in that. So they've been doing that north of Kingston for a long time, and we have got to get into that habit now, I think. But there's so many good resources, but I would say clothing and doing a tick check is your best thing.
That's great. Jackie was asking, do you have any advice for potential fears or concerns from parents about their children in the woods?
I would say baby steps is the best. Like, you know, that maybe taking that, you know, looking out the window first, then going out, then, you know, then going just into the yard, and then pushing it a little bit longer. So you're starting with small amounts of time and small. Now, when the student starts to show enthusiasm, my hope always is that the parent sees the joy. I'm sure that's not always the case, and that they're just constantly worried because they're worried about things they don't know. Other than that, I think baby steps, Jackie.
Thanks. Just want to give a little shout out there to Jessica. She's providing outsideplay.ca. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, Nancy, but a great resource for helping parents get outside. So thank you for that. Any things you're willing to share in the chat with each other is also super helpful. So, okay, another question. How do you encourage respectful interactions with the outdoor world?
I think it's a lot of work. And there's going to be some students that it comes naturally to, and others that really just want to break and wreck and possibly kill creatures. And I think it's a constant sort of stop. And just like if you're going to be rough with another kid, you're going to stop them if you're going to be rough with nature. And then talking about reciprocity and respect, and having those words, like that respect word, but also all the other ones, like kindness. Like, it's just a simple kindness to things that are living. And we can talk, especially if you do something like adopt a tree, the hope is that they become attached to these parts of nature, and that will help with that piece of empathy and kindness towards it.
Yeah, and Kathy from the Pathway Project just saying, teachers and parents, really important for role modeling, right? When you're out, if you show empathy and respect, kids are watching.
Yeah, and I struggle sometimes with that, like, when do you harvest, when do you not harvest? And we have that discussion. Should we be taking these boughs of cedar from the tree when we're making something for survival? Well, if everybody did it, then we wouldn't have any trees, that discussion. But if you were, in the woods on your own and you needed the cedar, you just need to be respectful and thankful to that tree of helping you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that goes in line with what Jackie's mentioning. We need to foster stewardship.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more questions. This will be a last call for questions. If you have anything, or you've been pondering, or you want to say anything, we're gonna wrap it up in about 5 minutes, and I have a couple questions ready here for you, Nancy. Can you expand upon the idea of not being okay, not knowing everything, not having all the answers when you step outside for your journey? That probably is a barrier for a lot of people just starting,
Yeah, and before I answer this, because we've gone to a group, I see all these great names of people that I missed. So I miss you, and I also have loved working with you, and thank you for coming. With regards to not being an expert, if I would never be able to start the business that I'm doing if I thought I had to be an expert. And for those that have worked with me, they know this. It's not about knowing everything, because that excitement that you get when a child is excited about something, sometimes if you say, well, that is a cardinal, and then the learning stops, or they just not as excited anymore. But when you start to learn with the students, it just becomes a lot more exciting. It is really hard sometimes not knowing the answer. I have to admit this. Or like, I'm like, oh, I did know that frog, but I don't know it now. And that can be really hard, especially when students are often looking to you for the answer. But once again, it becomes very exciting when they get to be part of that inquiry and that wonder. And then the story gets bigger. So you can ask, what do you think it is? And then the story becomes much more than just a name. And at the same time, you get to the name because then you have a relationship with it, but you have a lot more to it. And that's how I'd say it.
To move along with that, what kind of extensions can you do with your outdoor learning experiences? Once you're out there and you're enjoying and you're learning together and you're sort of open, how do you bring that back into the classroom? What's that give and take?
So this is an excellent question, and it's funny that you're asking me, because I rarely do this, because I get to work with the students outside, and then the teacher, I often see, like, sometimes a teacher will email me or send me something about what they did after the experience to make it even richer than it was. Outdoor education can stand on its own, but it becomes much richer when you can actually continue that learning. So some of the things with regards to, like, taking pictures, taking videos of the students, what they're doing, maybe what they're building, and then bringing that back to the class and then showing them, maybe they're building a structure or something, and then they can really look at that structure as a class. But it's their structure, so it's not like someone else's structure, so that they can really see, come up with new ideas or what worked, what didn't. Lots of different ideas around art can be, bringing back, doing a diagram, doing art. I was talking to Sheila Potter, who does a lot of work outside with her students, and I said, what do you do to bring that, to continue that learning back? And she says that she uses, I have to remember the word, remember the frog. She uses exit cards. So for example, like you put a sticky note on everyone's desk before they go outside, and she'll have an idea of what she wants them to learn. So let's say, what is a plant? So when they're doing their learning outside, once they come in, they answer that question on their sticky note. What is a plant? And it's short, it's quick, and it allows you to know what's going on with the learning outside. Journal writing's really great. So if you get into a habit, you go outside and then you come inside and you do journal, depending on your class. Also, Sheila was telling me that time immediately after kids come inside, she often gets the best writing and reading and stuff because their minds are really, really alert. And I'm sure that there's other teachers in this and parents that might agree with that. So those are some ideas.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to open this one up to the chat as well, because having so many teachers here with us, I'm sure they have some suggestions. But Jessica is asking, are there storybooks you like to read to children out in nature about nature? Always like good children's literature ideas. So if you are in the meeting today and you have a book you just adore, Jessica is looking. Nancy, I'm not sure if you have any go-tos.
From Kate Messner, Over and Under, Up and Down, In the Dirt, In the Swamp. She's got a bunch that are really good about nature. So if you're looking at soils, this one is about the dirt. I've got one called The Butterfly Garden that I really like, and it talks about pollinators and what do pollinators need. Not a Stick as well. Not a Stick is really fun for looking at building and making and seeing sticks in different ways.
Yeah, and Kathy is suggesting what I was going to bring up. We have a list of great nature books on the website. We also have a video with librarian Kate Jarrett in our video series entirely on nature books. And I think she goes through a whole collection of her favorites. You can kind of see why they're so special and how they're related to nature. Just a lot of great stuff there.
And the big book of nature activities, I have it on my desk usually, but I cleared off my desk so my mind would be clear. But it is fantastic for activities and also for background information. Like I have learned a ton from that book.
Yeah, that's a great one, the big book of nature activities. And that, of course, is from Jacob Rodenberg, the executive director of Camp Kawartha, who you will see in a couple weeks if you come in. I have one more question for you, Nancy, and then we're going to close out the night. And those of you who haven't had enough of Nancy should come back next week. How do you know you've been successful with an outdoor session?
For me, often it's excitement and engagement. And that looks very different for different kids. And so I have to learn what that looks like for each kid fairly quickly because I only see them. Whereas you will know your kids and you'll know what engagement looks like. The other thing is that often you can have those special moments with one child while you're outside because they have space and they're not shy about sharing. So sometimes in a class they might not share. So sometimes you'll get more from children outside. So that's pretty exciting. That's sort of one of the reasons you would take them outside, because they'll feel comfortable enough to share what's going on. And also, like, when they start, the curiosity that comes from one and moves to another activity. Like say you're going out to do looking at plants, but you discover mushrooms, and then the class is super excited about mushrooms, and then they come up with ideas of what they want to do. They want to invite someone who knows about mushrooms. They want to try different mushrooms. Like it's around sort of the curiosity that happens after and during. I think that's also when I know it's going well. Sometimes I depend on the teacher. Sometimes teachers say to me, oh, that went really well for especially that kid. I've never seen them do that. And that's pretty exciting for me because that's always nice.
Thank you, Nancy, and everyone who came to this presentation. We appreciate you so much. Good night.
Thank you for all the work that you're doing.